I want you to try and visualize a scenario with me for a second. It is a Tuesday morning. It's about 9:01 a.m. You have just sat down at your desk with your coffee,
Hmm.
and it is the exact perfect temperature. And you have this completely fleeting moment of absolute clarity. You know exactly what you need to do to start your day.
Oh, the golden minute.
Yes, the golden minute.
That is that rare moment where you feel like you can just conquer the world before all the chaos actually sets in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know you need to open that one specific quarterly projection spreadsheet, check the status of the Project Alpha folder, and just fire off a quick check-in email to your manager. It's simple.
Right.
But then reality hits. You minimize your web browser, and your desktop looks like a digital grenade just went off. I mean, icons are everywhere.
Just a wall of files.
A total wall.
Uh-huh.
So you give up on the desktop, you dive into File Explorer, and suddenly you're playing that game. You know the one I'm talking about.
The folder clicking game.
Yeah, clicking C drive, users, documents, work, 2024. And then you freeze. Wait, did I save it in Q1 or did I put it in the archive folder?
And just like that, your flow state is completely gone.
Gone.
You haven't even typed a single word of actual work yet, and you are already fatigued just by the navigation.
It's the friction. It is that invisible tax that we pay every single time we switch tasks on a computer. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the source material for a tool that actually claims to eliminate that tax entirely. It is a Windows tool called Wayfinder Menu.
Yeah, Wayfinder Menu.
Now, I will be totally honest with you. When I first saw the sources for this, I definitely rolled my eyes a little bit. I thought, great, another launcher. Do we have enough of these things already? Doesn't Windows literally have a start menu built in?
I think that is a very fair skepticism to have right out of the gate. Windows has a search bar, Mac has Spotlight. We are completely drowning in ways to open our files.
Right.
So the obvious question is, why on earth do we need another thing running in the background eating up memory?
Exactly. But as I dug into the documentation and really looked at the underlying user philosophy here, I realized this isn't trying to replace the operating system at all. It is actually trying to fix the behavior of the user. It's not about searching for things. It's about finding them instantly.
That is the absolute key insight here. Wayfinder is not a search engine. It is a curating engine.
Mhm.
It's basically a tool that sits quietly down in your system, that little corner by the clock, and its entire job is to bridge the gap between I need this thing and I have this thing.
Immediacy.
Pure immediacy.
Okay, so let's get into the actual mechanics of this before we get too deep into the philosophy, because the way it actually works is quite clever. Our mission today is to walk you through exactly how this functions, from the first click all the way to the crazy advanced context stuff.
It really acts like an audio manual if you follow along.
Yeah, so the core loop is deceptively simple. You press a single hotkey, and the default they use is the Windows key plus spacebar, and a menu just pops up right where your mouse cursor already is.
And we should probably pause on that hotkey for a second. The sources do highlight that Win plus space is the default trigger, but if you are a heavy keyboard user, you probably know that combination is often reserved for changing keyboard languages in Windows.
Oh, or if you use Power Toys, I think it conflicts there too.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I have Win plus space set to mute my microphone on Zoom.
Precisely. So the tool is built with a lot of flexibility in mind from day one. You can remap that trigger to Alt plus space, Clear plus Q, literally whatever muscle memory works for your hands.
That's customizable.
Highly. But the main point is, it's one simple chord, and your entire digital toolbox appears exactly where your eyes are already focused on the screen.
Okay, so let's walk through the actual first-run user experience. Say I download Wayfinder right now. I install it. I hit my hotkey. I am fully expecting, just based on every other piece of software I've installed in the last decade, to see a bunch of pre-populated junk,
Oh,
like links to Amazon, generic, getting started PDF, maybe a huge donate button, or a link to the developer's Twitter feed.
and that is exactly where Wayfinder throws a massive curveball. You hit the key for the first time, and the menu is totally empty.
It's literally blank. It's just a tiny little empty box.
Completely blank. And for a lot of users, the initial reaction mentioned in the feedback logs is, wait, is it broken? Did I install this wrong?
That was genuinely my first thought reading the walkthrough. But you're telling me this is an intentional design stance.
It is a very specific philosophy they call anti-bloat. The developer's core argument is that if the tool comes pre-filled with stuff, it is just adding to the exact noise we were talking about in the intro.
That makes sense.
Right, like if they put a generic My Documents shortcut in there, but you personally never use My Documents because you keep everything in Dropbox, well, now it's just visual clutter to you. By starting empty, it forces you to be intentional.
It's kind of like moving into a brand new apartment. You do not want the previous tenant's leftover furniture sitting in the living room. You want to bring in your own specific chair, your own desk, your own weird vintage lamp.
Exactly. You are building a dashboard that reflects how your brain works, not the developer's idea of how your brain should work. It demands that you curate it yourself.
Okay, I love that. So I've got this empty box on my screen. I obviously need to fill it. The interface has this Edit menu button right at the top, which takes us into the configuration side. Now, the source material breaks the functionality down into what they call the 6 pillars.
Yes, the 6 types of items.
Right. These are the specific things you can actually put into this menu.
And this is really where we move from it just being a launcher to being a legitimate heavy-duty workflow tool.
Let's walk through these pillars because the nuance here is super important. The first 2 are pretty much the bread and butter, folders and files.
Right. This addresses that navigation problem directly. Think back to that Project Alpha folder you mentioned earlier. Instead of clicking through 5 layers of folder hierarchy every single morning, drive, users, department, year, project DRUD, you just browse to it one single time inside Wayfinder.
You point the tool to it once.
Exactly. You name it Project Alpha and you save it. Now, forever, it is just win plus space, click Project Alpha. You have essentially turned a 20-second daily hunt into a half-second reflex.
And for files, it's the exact same logic.
It is, but you have to think strategically about the types of files. You do not put every single file you own into this menu. You put the high-frequency files in there.
Like what?
Like the master budget spreadsheet that always takes forever to find in your recents list, or a specific config file that you have to edit 3 times a day for server maintenance.
So it's not really for the random document you're going to work on for just 1 hour and never touch again. It's for the permanent infrastructure of your job.
Exactly. It completely bypasses the whole file open recent document dance we all do. It just launches the specific file in its default application instantly. It's all about reliability. You know exactly where it is every time.
Okay, that brings us to pillar number 3, which is websites. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here again. I have a bookmarks bar in Chrome. I have another bookmarks bar in Edge. I have Pocket on my phone. Why on earth do I need web bookmarks living in my system tray?
That is a great question, and the answer really lies in what the developers call appification.
Appification.
Yeah. When you bury a tool deep inside a browser bookmark folder, it just feels like another web page. It feels distant. But when you put it right in Wayfinder alongside your local system folders and your Excel sheets, it suddenly feels like a dedicated desktop tool. It elevates the status of that URL.
It kind of blurs the line between what is local on my hard drive and what is up in the cloud.
It really does. And more importantly, it keeps you from getting distracted.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you open your browser just to find a bookmark, you are probably going to see a news headline on the start page or a little red badge on your email tab, and suddenly you are doom scrolling for 20 minutes. If you launch the specific URL straight from Wayfinder, you're bypassing all of that. You're going straight to the destination. It's like a tunnel.
Okay, that makes total sense. It keeps the blinders on so you don't get derailed.
Exactly.
Now, pillar number 4. I have to say, this is the one where I actually laughed out loud reading the notes because it honestly felt like the developer was spying on my office. Email shortcuts.
Oh yeah, this is the sleeper feature of the whole tool. It sounds incredibly boring on paper, but in practice, it is a massive high-leverage time saver.
Okay, tell me if I've got this right. I can set up a shortcut that isn't just, open Microsoft Outlook. It's open Outlook. Start a brand new message to this one specific person with this exact subject line and this specific body text already filled in.
That is exactly it. Think about the classic weekly status report.
Oh, the TPS report.
Yes. You send it every single Friday at 4 p.m. The subject is always weekly update dash the bait. The body is always, hi team, here are the metrics for the week. Let me know if you have questions.
And I literally type that out like a robot every single week. Or, even worse, I go into my sent folder, find last week's email, copy the whole thing, paste it into a new window.
Which is complete madness. Wayfinder turns that entire process into a single template. You click one button in your menu, the email window pops up fully populated, you just fill in the 2 lines of new numbers for that week, and you hit send.
I mean, that is not just saving time. That is saving pure willpower.
It drastically reduces decision fatigue. You do not have to remember the formatting. You do not have to sit there worrying if you forgot to CC the project manager again. It is just already done for you.
I absolutely love that. Okay, moving on to number 5, notes. Now, is this trying to replace a massive app like OneNote or Obsidian? Because I will tell you, I am very particular about my note-taking apps.
No, not at all. And it's actually really important to make that distinction clear. If you try to write a novel or organize a massive research paper inside Wayfinder, you are going to have a terrible time. This is strictly a scratch pad.
So kind of like a digital sticky note on your monitor.
Exactly. It is for ephemeral data, stuff you need right now but won't need tomorrow. A temporary password you just generated that you need for the next hour. A quick checklist for a deployment process you are running right this second.
How does it display?
You click the item in the menu, and a tiny little window pops up with the text. You can read it, you can copy from it, or you can just click again to edit it.
So it's for all the stuff that simply isn't worth saving a whole Word document for, but you also really don't want to lose it on a random piece of paper floating around your desk.
Right, and it keeps your actual heavy-duty note-taking app clean because you aren't constantly clogging it up with temporary junk. It's the digital back of the envelope.
Perfect. Now, the last pillar. Number 6. This is where the source material got a little bit technical, so I really want to break this down carefully for everyone listening. Keystroke sequences.
Right. This is definitely the power user feature of the bunch. In technical terms, it is a macro.
Okay, but macro is a very scary word for a lot of people. It sounds like coding. It sounds like I need a computer science degree just to use it.
It really shouldn't be scary. I like to think of it as keyboard gymnastics.
Keyboard gymnastics.
Yeah. We all use terrible enterprise software or clunky web forms where the navigation is just awful. You have to click a specific box, hit the tab key 3 times, type in a billing code, hit enter, wait a full second for it to load, and then hit tab again.
Oh, painfully familiar. The data entry dance.
Exactly. Well, Wayfinder lets you record that exact dance. You literally just tell it, types this text, then press the tab key, then press the enter key, and you save that entire sequence as an item called login procedure.
And then what? I just click it in the menu and it fires off.
And Wayfinder becomes a ghost typist. It briefly takes control of your keyboard for a split second and physically plays back those exact keys into whatever window is currently active.
Wow. So it's not just pasting a block of text.
Yeah.
It is actually pressing the system buttons for me.
Correct. It is performing the action. If you have a repetitive data entry task, like say you have to fill out the exact same 5 fields in a CRM every single morning, this one feature alone could probably save you an hour a week. It removes the physical repetition from your hands.
Okay, so we have these 6 powerful pillars: folders, files, websites, emails, notes, and keystrokes. But I immediately spot a huge problem here. If I get super excited, which I usually do with new tools, and I add all my stuff, I'm going to end up with a list of 50 items.
Yeah.
Haven't I just recreated my incredibly messy desktop, but now it's jammed inside a tiny little pop-up menu?
You absolutely have, and that is exactly why the category management feature they built is so critical. The sources are very clear on this rule. If you have to scroll your menu, you have failed.
Oh, wow. So how do we organize it so we don't have to scroll?
Submenus. You go into the category management section and you create buckets. Things like client work, personal admin, dev tools. When you hit Win plus space, you should not be looking at 30 items. You should only see maybe 5 or 6 high-level categories.
So you're building an information hierarchy.
Exactly. It leverages Miller's Law. That's the psychological concept, that the average human brain can really only hold about 7 items in its working memory at once.
Right.
By using these categories, you're keeping the menu scannable. You just hover your mouse over client work, and then the specific spreadsheets for that client slide out to the side. It keeps the cognitive load incredibly low.
And can I actually decide what goes at the top of that list? Because I know myself, and I want my daily to-do list at the very top. I do not want it sorted alphabetically down under D.
Yes, you have total control. There is a specific Manage Menu Order screen. It is entirely manual sorting. You literally push up and down buttons to move items exactly where you want them. You curate the priority. Your absolute most used tools should be pinned right at the top, physically closest to where your mouse is. You are designing your own physical flow.
Okay, so we've built a customized menu. We've organized it perfectly. Up to this point, Wayfinder sounds like a very polished, very customizable launcher.
Yeah.
But there's a whole section in the docs called Context Awareness that seems to take this to a completely different level. The source material actually calls this the wow factor of the tool.
This is where the tool stops being just a static list and starts being genuinely smart. Most launchers are completely dumb. They show you the exact same list of shortcuts, whether you are playing a PC game, writing a heavy legal brief, or editing a YouTube video.
And Wayfinder is different how?
Wayfinder actively watches what you are doing on the computer. It detects the active window.
Okay, give me a concrete example of that. Paint the picture for me.
Let's say you are a graphic designer. When you are working inside Photoshop, Wayfinder detects the Photoshop process running in the foreground. You can actually create a specific context menu just for that app. So when you hit Win plus space while using Photoshop, you do not see your accounting spreadsheets or your personal budget. You only see your brush presets, your specific asset folders, and your design script shortcuts.
And then what happens if I Alt-tab over to my web browser to look something up?
The menu instantly changes on the fly. Now, when you trigger it, it shows your web bookmarks and your research tools. It adapts to the context of your current work.
That is actually really clever. It's almost like having a physical workbench that automatically clears itself off and brings out a totally new set of tools every single time I switch to a different task.
That is a perfect analogy. And the documentation points out it gets even more granular when you are using web browsers. It doesn't just say, oh, you are in Chrome right now. It actually looks at the specific domain you are visiting.
Wait, really? So it knows the difference between me being on GitHub versus being on a Google Doc.
It does. It actually reads the window title. So you can have a dedicated set of shortcuts that only appear when you are specifically on github.com/41, maybe links to your main repositories or some specific issue trackers. But the exact moment you switch browser tabs over to Trello.com, those GitHub shortcuts vanish and are instantly replaced by your project management links.
Okay, that completely solves the context switching problem we started this whole discussion with. It filters out all the noise. I do not need to see my heavy coding tools when I am just trying to write a simple weekly report.
Exactly. It keeps your attention hyper-focused. You only see the tools that are relevant to the task right in front of your face.
There's another major automation feature mentioned in the sources called auto strings. Now, this sounds a lot like text expansion.
It is text expansion, and for people who haven't used text expanders before, this is honestly life-changing stuff. It feels like magic the very first time you use it.
How does it work practically inside Wayfinder?
You define a very short code, a trigger, let's say the letters BTW, and you tell Wayfinder that whenever I type BTW, you should instantly replace it with the full phrase, by the way.
So I type 3 letters, and it automatically outputs 3 entire words.
Right, but you have to think bigger than that. Think about your professional email signature. Or maybe that massive standard reply paragraph you send to customers like, thank you for reaching out, our support team will get back to you within 24 business hours. You could map that entire paragraph to a tiny trigger like semicolon reply.
That is huge. But I do have a pretty major concern here. What if I am typing a normal word that just happens to contain those trigger letters? Like if I have a trigger for the letters THE, every single time I type the word theory, is my document just going to explode with random text?
That is the classic text expander problem, yes. But the expert notes highlight that Wayfinder has a very specific setting to handle this. You can choose if a trigger fires everywhere it sees the letters or only as a whole word.
Oh, I see. So if I set it to whole word, it essentially waits until I hit the spacebar to confirm that I am actually done typing that specific trigger.
Precisely. It prevents all those accidental misfires. It really shows a level of polish that suggests the developer actually uses this tool themselves every day.
Now, I want to circle back to speed for a second. We've talked a lot about the menu and clicking things inside it, but sometimes even 2 clicks feels too slow. If I have one single thing, let's say my master dashboard that I check 50 times a day, do I really always have to bring up the menu first?
No, you don't. This is where their global hotkeys feature comes in. You can take any individual item in your Wayfinder database, like that master dashboard, and assign a specific dedicated key combination just to that one item.
So I could make, say, Striddle plus Alt plus D launch that dashboard directly no matter what I'm doing.
Yes, it bypasses the visual menu entirely. You never even see the list pop up. You just hit the chord, and the action happens instantly.
So the mental hierarchy here is global hotkeys for the things I use hourly, the main menu for the things I use daily, and the subcategories for the things I only use weekly.
You've got it perfectly. It is a funnel of accessibility based entirely on frequency of use.
All right, before we wrap this up, I do have to ask the boring practical IT questions. Setup and maintenance. Does this thing actually launch when I turn my computer on? Because if I have to manually remember to open my productivity tool every morning, I am not going to be productive.
Very valid point. Yes, in the settings menu, there is just a very simple toggle that says launch at startup. You check that box exactly once, and it hooks itself into the Windows startup sequence. It will just quietly be there down in the tray when you log in, ready to go.
Good. And what about my data. If I spend 3 hours setting up all these brilliant context menus and text auto strings, where is all that actually saved? Is it buried somewhere deep in the Windows registry where I can never, ever find it?
No, the technical notes specifically mention that Wayfinder follows a self-contained or portable design philosophy. All your custom settings, your menu structure, your shortcut icons, they're all just saved in a local configuration folder right next to the app itself.
Why does that actually matter to the average non-technical user, though?
Because it means it is incredibly easy to back up. You can literally just copy that one folder to a USB thumb drive or throw it in your Dropbox, and you have instantly backed up your entire digital brain. It also means it is not permanently cluttering up your Windows registry with hidden files. It's just clean.
I really like that. It respects the machine it's running on.
It does. It feels very lightweight.
So we have thoroughly broken down the features here. We've seen the custom folders, the smart context switching, the macro keystrokes. But I want to zoom out for you, the listener, for a second. Why should you actually care about this? Why download yet another tool and go through the hassle of setting it up?
It really all comes back to what we discussed at the very beginning. Friction. We live in an economy of attention. Every single time you have to stop thinking about what you are currently creating and start thinking about where a file is located, you are paying a cognitive tax.
It's the micro search.
Yes, the microsearch. If you lose 10 seconds searching for a folder, that doesn't feel like a disaster in the moment. It feels trivial. But if you do that 100 times a day, which almost all modern knowledge workers do, that is nearly 20 minutes a day wasted. That's an hour and a half a week. That translates to 2 full work weeks a year lost to nothing but clicking.
2 full work weeks. I mean, that is a wildly sobering metric. I could literally take a vacation with that lost time.
Exactly.
Huh.
Wayfinder is ultimately about reclaiming that lost time. But even more importantly than the clock, it is about preserving your flow state. It is about closing the gap between the thought, I need the file, and the reality of the file just being open on your screen.
It fundamentally treats the computer as a workbench instead of just a disorganized storage locker.
That's beautifully put, yes.
The source material actually mentioned this tool grew out of a personal problem. The developer originally built it just because they were tired of their own messy desktop.
And honestly, that is usually where the absolute best software comes from. Not from some corporate committee or a massive focus group, but from one single person saying, I am incredibly frustrated by this, and I'm just going to code my way out of this frustration. It is a tool built by a user, specifically for users.
And for those of you listening who are more technically inclined, the sources did mention that there's a whole under-the-hood aspect to this software that we could maybe explore later, like how it actually hooks into the Windows API and handles that background process detection.
Yeah, the technical mechanics of how it monitors Windows are fascinating, but for today, the real actionable takeaway is definitely the workflow transformation.
So here's my challenge to you, the listener. The next time you sit down at your computer for work, just watch your own behavior for the first hour. Be really mindful of it. Count how many times you minimize a window just to look for something else. Count how many times you click through the exact same 3 folders.
I'm warning you, it is painful once you start noticing it. You really can't unsee it.
And then just imagine turning those 10 repetitive clicks into one single hotkey press. That is the promise of Wayfinder.
It is a physically small tool, but the impact it has on your daily sanity is absolutely massive.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over today. We happily spend thousands of dollars on faster computer processors, more RAM, crazy fast gigabit internet, all just to save a few milliseconds on load times. But we very rarely audit our own physical workflows. How much raw speed are you leaving on the table right now simply because you haven't bothered to organize your own digital workspace?
That's the truth. The bottleneck is rarely the computer hardware anymore. It's usually us.
A huge thanks to the team behind the documentation for providing the sources for this deep dive. It is a really fascinating approach to a totally universal problem.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to analyze.
And thank you for listening. Seriously, go organize that desktop. We will see you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.